everybody, and welcome to another Victory Green Hour as the Philadelphia Eagles defeat the Green Bay Packers 10-7 on Monday Night Football to improve to 7-2 and remain in first place in the NFC. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, what's going on, man?
Well, beyond being a little tired, I mean, it's a win. We're going to take wins where we've made a business out of winning games in not the prettiest of fashion. And I'm extra happy that we won because I forgot to do our tradition of me saying "Fly Eagles Fly" at the end of the preview episode. So extra happy that didn't throw a wrench in things. But otherwise, I mean, a win's a win.
If we would have lost, I was blaming you for the loss. Yeah, the whole sleep thing, we're going to have it again next week. It was a rough day at work today. We have Sunday Night Football this week. We got Monday Night Football in 3 weeks again. So it's going to be a rough couple of weeks. I miss 1 p.m. kickoffs. I get it. We're defending Super Bowl champs. We're a primetime team, so they want us, in the spotlight. We bring ratings. But if I had it my way, the Eagles would play at kickoff at 1 o'clock every Sunday. That's what I prefer. But before we jump into the game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHarrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpull Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get podcasts at Eagles Pinpull Network. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts on the game. There's a lot of talk that the game was boring, but then, if you love defensive football, it was a great football game. It was an entertaining football game for, fans of other teams. They probably didn't think that way, but I was locked in all throughout the entire game. Was I pissed off at times? Sure, I was. And I know we're going to definitely talk about that fourth down play in the fourth quarter, which there are reports now that Jalen and AJ may have gone rogue, but for two people that apparently don't like each other, they plan things, Yeah, so the Eagles started off the game and had a great drive, 16 plays. It took up over 8.5 minutes, and Jalen fumbled the ball. Only his third turnover on the year. The Eagles' fourth turnover on the year. They're the best team in the NFL when it comes to not turning the football over. It seems as if Kevin Patullo's opening script and coming out at halftime, a lot of the times they're good. It's everything in between. He's not good at making adjustments, and that's something he needs to work on. Sirianni needs to work on. Somebody needs to work on, because the Eagles have the highest percentage of 3-and-outs in the league, and we saw it again yesterday. They went 3-and-out a number of times, and if it wasn't for the defense, the Eagles lose that game. Like, the Eagles' offense has to be much better if they want to beat teams, going into playoffs like Detroit, like St. Louis, like Los Angeles, like Seattle, even Tampa Bay. Like, you're going to face better offenses, and if you can't move the ball now. Green Bay is probably the best defense the Eagles are going to play the rest of the year. So that makes it, it's a two-way street there. They're going to play teams that don't have as good of a defense as Green Bay, so it could make things a little bit easier, in the run game, throwing the football. But they're still going to have to be able to put up points for team. Again, like, if you look at the 4 o'clock window on Sunday, 40 points for the Rams, 40 points plus for Seattle, 40 plus points for, I forget who the other team was, but people are putting up 40 points, and the Eagles won, scoring 10, which is awesome. Obviously, like you said, a win is a win, and we're going to take it. And the Eagles are the type of team that, they can win in any type of football game. It can be a defensive battle. They can come away with a win. If they need to go out there and, score multiple touchdowns in the fourth quarter like they did against the Rams a month ago, they can do that as well. But the one word that I'm searching for when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles, consistency on the offensive side of the football. And right now they don't have that. And that's something they're going to have to do going forward, especially heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on the consistency aspect of it. It's 100% accurate. Like, this offense, well, when called upon to put up, 30 points or whatever to go pound for pound with another offense, they've been capable of doing it. But this is an offense that should do it on a consistent basis. This is an offense that we should see putting up at least 21, 24 points every single game. Like you said, granted, the Green Bay Packers have an extremely good defense. Lucky for us, our defense is very good as well, and their offense is just as inconsistent as our offense. So it kind of benefited us that we ended up in a battle with a team that is probably more like us than we would like to admit to. So, I mean, we had the benefit this week, but I mean, you want to get that consistency where you're putting up 24 points, you're putting up 30 points. You don't have to sit there and sweat out a 10-7 game that could have really went either direction at any point in time. We've made a job of winning ugly games, but we need to find a way to be consistent and win some games just pretty, just try and win some games that we should be winning and that we should be easily getting the W in. And I mean, for the rest of the way, obviously, things are not going to necessarily be the easiest for us, because we do know that we did a gauntlet at the start of the season. We have a little bit of like a mini gauntlet going on right now. We got, Detroit coming up. We got the Commanders coming up, and they could be healthier at the top when the time comes. But I mean, I agree with you. Consistency needs to start becoming something, and I feel like Kevin Patullo has seen what works and seems to have figured out some aspects of this offense that work, but he needs to try his best to stick to it, try and find a way to make it a consistent thing, and help this defense out, because you can't consistently lean into this defense and hope that eventually they can bend and not break, but at times they're going to bend and they're going to break, despite how good they are. Any defense is going to do that. So we need to be able to support the defense, and we need to be able to step up and support that defense.
I disagree with the Kevin Patullo point. Before I get to that, I will say, like, the Eagles went into Arrowhead and won. They went into Tampa and won. They went into Green Bay and won. They beat the Rams in Philly. It doesn't matter how they win. And Jalen says this all the time. Each game is going to look different. It doesn't matter how they win games. They're just going to win games. And that's what they do. They have the best record over the last couple of years, obviously, defending Super Bowl champs. So, they however they need to win, however many points they need to score, all they need to do is score one more point than the other team, and they win games. And that's and they're kind of doing that to perfection. Would we like to be, like the Lions and throw up 40 points and have the fancy trick plays? Would we like to see that? Sure, but the Eagles have made it, their thing right now is just, let's win, and it doesn't matter how it looks. It can look ugly, but if we come away with the W, that's all that matters. Are there going to be unhappy people on the offensive side of the ball? Maybe, probably, but your legacy is tied in with winning games, winning championships. And right now, that's what they're doing. When the Eagles go out there, it's better than 75% chance that they're going to win the game. And that's exactly what they've been doing over the last, year and a half. In terms of Kevin Patullo, no, I disagree with what he said. He doesn't know what works. And if he does know what works, he doesn't call it. He goes away from it, and the give up plays on 3rd and long, it's so frustrating because they're still predictable. I called out more than half the plays yesterday, what was going to happen yesterday based on formation. If I can do that sitting on the couch and I'm not getting paid millions of dollars as a defensive coordinator, what do you think these guys that are getting paid millions and millions of dollars are? They're not going to. You don't think they're going to be able to figure out? That's why the offense yesterday only had a total of. Give me 1 second. Got it here somewhere. Crap. Team stats. Eagles had 294 yards of total offense. The Eagles are this year averaging 300 yards of offense. That's for the talent on this offense, that's not good enough. Saquon had 60 yards yesterday, averaged under three yards per carry. That's not good enough. Now, on one of his last carries, he did get tripped by Micah, and if Micah doesn't trip him, maybe he goes for a big gain there, and obviously that one big gain can change what his game looks like. Jalen was off yesterday, and I don't know if that was because it was really cold in Green Bay, and the ball's probably rock hard, and that can affect and maybe it affect Jordan Love too, because Jordan Love didn't look good throwing the football, and look good out there. I'm not using it as an excuse, but if you don't typically play in weather like that on a consistent basis, that could affect you, throwing the football and the way you handle it. So maybe that had an effect. But again, as we mentioned before, Green Bay's defense is really good.
Yeah, I agree. Like on that, I like specifically that AJ Brown, the fourth down play that we're gonna get more into for the decision making aspect. The ball, it was could have been a much better thrown ball. Like he threw it kind of short and to the right when it should have been deeper and to the left to the outside the numbers portion of the field. And I think that obviously, like when I watch, some people have put up the all 22 film of it, I'm like, that's a play we generally see Jalen Hurts hit. That's like a Jalen Hurts. That's your typical, deep ball dime that Jalen Hurts hits 90% of the time in this in so far from what we've seen in his career. He's such a good deep ball thrower, and that one was just short and kind of inside the numbers. And it's like when I saw it, I'm like, I've seen Jalen make this play so many times before that. And that just goes to show, just like you said, this is the first time they've played in really, really cold, like below. Okay, well, it's below zero by Canadian terms, but it wasn't below zero by American terms. But like,
it was
this
below
is like
freezing. Freezing is
below
32
freezing.
degrees Fahrenheit.
There's a better word.
In the 20s. Yeah.
Okay, that's a better way to put it. Below freezing. So it was below freezing, and it's the first time that the Eagles have been put in that climate so far. And obviously, we're going to be put to the test in that situation a little bit more now that we're getting into winter. But that first time doing it probably is pretty end off of the bye, not trying to make excuses, but both of those situations can kind of play a bit of a factor into. But I completely agree that Jalen just didn't look right. And that, like thinking back to that ball specifically, there were plays we've seen Jalen make a number of times, like fumbling the ball too. Like those are just not Jalen Hurts things to do over the last couple years. The deep ball and the fumble usually are not. Usually he's spot on with the deep ball, and he never fumbles or rarely fumbles.
And he also missed Grant Calcaterra. I think it was in the fourth quarter. Like if he hits him there, that's a touchdown. That improves his numbers. So he was just off yesterday. It happens, and we anticipate that he'll be better going forward. Which, he was good against Minnesota, really good against the Giants. The Eagles are 5-0 after the bye, but like my issue was, you had 15 days to prepare for this game, and that was the game plan that you came up with. And it felt like they were being really, really conservative. Like they just and Eagles do this typically. Like if they don't turn the ball over, they're going to win the game, because that's kind of how they've been playing over the last year and a half. And normally that works, and it worked again. Like they had less turnovers. They won the turnover battle yesterday. They turned it over once, and Green Bay turned it over twice, 2 fumbles. And they came away with a win. Like usually if you win the turnover battle, you're going to win the game more times than you lose the game. So I get it for that aspect. But like when you have Devontae Smith, AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley, give them an opportunity to like the Eagles were getting behind the sticks early because Green Bay knew what was coming because of the predictability by the formation and just the tendencies that the Eagles have, and like all the goodwill. Now, granted, it was against the Giants. All the goodwill that Kevin Patullo had, calling plays against the Giants, kind of went out the window against the Packers, which is obviously to be expected. The Packers are a much better team than the Giants, but yeah, like I don't understand why Patullo just doesn't get it. And like, where was the slant patterns to the slant routes to AJ? Now, it was because like after the game, AJ kind of was like, "Yeah, I was pretty much the decoy today." Like he didn't complain, and that's good. And again, I have no issues if there was a time for AJ to complain. I'm on AJ's side with it, especially with the way the offense is run. Like I wouldn't have been mad at him if he complained yesterday, because it was a terrible game plan yesterday. It was awful. The route combinations again suck. They are terrible for the most part. Like on the touchdown pass to Devontae Smith, the safety came down because AJ was running it underneath, and that left Devontae one-on-one. I think it was with Valentine, if I'm not mistaken, and he was able to come away with the touchdown. Like, so he, and then on the play before that on Saquon's, which that reminded me of the Jaguars game last year when he did the backward flip. He did the spin move, and if there was another defender there, maybe he would have did a backward jump again. But AJ Brown down the field blocking, like, he deserves a lot of credit. And again, somebody asked him about, like, he's like, I shouldn't be, rewarded or thanked or congratulated for doing my job. And something tells me, though, I want to say this, as cool as he was, I kind of wonder, and I don't know your thoughts on this, if there's kind of like I don't want to say a handshake agreement, but Howie had a discussion with him and they were like, look, let's win another championship this year. And we got you in the offseason. Now by we got you, that could mean anything. It could be a contract. It could be a trade. It could be whatever. But I wonder if that like maybe that's why AJ was really cool. Or he's hurting. Like he's had the hamstring issue. Like maybe he's not 100%, and he understands that, and he gets why he kind of was used as a decoy yesterday.
Yeah, it's always hard to read the room when it comes to AJ Brown and the relationship with the team. I will never say that he's at a point where he's disgruntled, like we've seen genuine disgruntled wide receivers and players with teams in the past. He's in a very tough media market that takes things and runs with it. And is some of the stuff that he's done good for the team? Probably not. Is some of the stuff that he said good for the team? Probably not. But is some of it just the media completely spinning things to just match a narrative that they want to roll with? 100%. Like we talked about Diana Rossini, and that she ran week in and week out with the same anonymous AFC source that says they think AJ Brown's going to be traded. They think AJ Brown's upset. They think AJ Brown doesn't like Philly anymore. Blah, blah, blah. Just went with the same story. Like you find like the media in Philly and the people who want clicks are going to go after Philadelphia because they know that Philly fans are very passionate. They like to they go right after someone when they think something doesn't feel right or something's not true. So, I mean, it's really hard to read the room. And I mean, would I be surprised if at this point AJ Brown is not 100%? Definitely not, because he was dealing with something earlier in the season. Then he was dealing with something heading into the bye, didn't play, came out of the bye despite having, what you said, 15 days. So despite having 15 days to heal, that doesn't always, like soft tissue issues, which AJ Brown's been notorious for having. It's been an issue in the past for him, and it's hampered him for weeks on end in the past. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not 100%. And your first game back, and you're playing in, freezing weather, like that must be really challenging to come back from soft tissue issues and be right into that type of temperature and that type of climate. So I'm going to go more on the belief that because he just got a fresh contract, like there's one of the biggest reasons we can't trade him, or it doesn't really make a ton of sense to trade him, is that he's got a boatload of dead money right now. And even through next year, really the next year is when it makes more sense to maybe to consider it. But I mean, ultimately, I feel like it's more he just wasn't 100%, not the handshake thing. Not saying that obviously anything can happen behind closed doors and anything can happen with Howie Roseman, but it just feels more like this was not like it. Say he was going and he was playing in Philadelphia and the temperature was far more respectable, above freezing at a more amicable type of environment to play in, he may have looked much different. And I wouldn't be surprised if he would have looked a lot different. But I will never rule anything out with AJ Brown and what they might be trying to do to just appease him and get through this season, try and get another championship, try and get back there and just see what they can do. and make some good things happen in Philadelphia. You can tell, like, not to throw dynasty around, but you can tell that this team is built for the long haul. Obviously, they're going to have to shift a lot of their money to the defensive side of the ball now, and then they'll have to put significant draft capital and investment into the offensive side of the ball. The script is going to flip, but this team is set up very well for now and for the future. So maybe there's something going on there with AJ Brown to move on, but I do more believe that it's that he wasn't 100% and the weather did not help.
I will say I want AJ Brown to stay. He's
100%.
one of the best receivers in franchise history, if not the best receiver in franchise history. So I do hope that they do figure it out. He gets healthy and they figure it out on the offensive side of the ball, getting him the ball and getting him back. And remember that streak of 5 games in a row or whatever, it was 125 plus yards receiving. Like, we know what he's capable of doing. But Devontae Smith is also really good, and it helps, like, when one can be a decoy. If Devontae keeps putting up the numbers that he's been putting up, maybe that'll pull a safety to his side, and AJ will be left open. Again, they are going to be going up against defenses that aren't as good as Green Bay, in the upcoming weeks and the rest of the season. I do want to talk about defense.
And to speak of, before we move there, to speak on Devontae Smith, like, his catch radius and hands have got to be, bar none, the best in the NFL right now. Like, I mean, you could argue Mike Evans at one point or another obviously was amazing for it, but, like, the things that Devontae Smith is able to do and has been doing, and the plays that he's been making, especially this year, there's only a handful of players that are going to be able to tell me that their quarterback can trust to put the ball where Jalen can put it for Devontae, and a play happens 90% of the time. It's truly special, the connection that they have, and Devontae Smith's capabilities in general.
I mean, and people were questioning how he's going to perform in the NFL because of his slender size, and he has not, the Slim Reaper has not let that affect his play. Jumping over to the defensive side of the ball, Jalen Phillips' debut in an Eagles uniform couldn't have gone any better. I mean, he could have had a sack or two, but he had a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, played the run really tough. The Eagles' defensive line, or edge position, which was considered a weakness, was looked at as a weakness, is now a strength with Phillips, Nolan Smith back, BG got 10 snaps. Jalix Hunt, it seems to be following the script he had last year when he started to pick it up in the second half of the year. He's had a sack each in the last couple of games. He looks good. Jalen Carter had his best game of the season yesterday. Now, I know he's not an edge, but still, if Jalen Carter can get back to the form he was last year, look out, because that makes the entire defensive line that much better. Nakobe Dean, the Eagles have to find a way to resign him. Like, he is the heart and soul of this defense, and he is so good. Does he always get the tackle, like, in the backfield when he reads a play perfectly? No, but, like, the Eagles' run defense has been 100 times better since he's come back. They were giving up well over 100 yards rushing while he was out. When he came back, they're not giving up a lot of yards. Now, Josh Jacobs is really good. He had 70, 80 yards yesterday. And the Packers as a team had 104 yards rushing. And looking at the stats real quick, I apologize. Jacobs had 74 and Jordan Love had 28. But he has been such a bright spot, and everybody thought, like, oh, when he comes back, is he going to be able to get on the field? Jahad Campbell's been doing so good. He's getting the 2/3 of the snaps, 3/4 of the snaps at backer next to Zach Bond. I don't know how the Eagles are going to let him walk after the year. He might be able to get a big contract elsewhere, and if he does, and the Eagles can't afford to match him, good luck. Good for Nakobe. Good luck to him. But I need him back in an Eagles uniform, some way, somehow.
Yeah, I start to think of, and obviously I think Nakobe Dean is far better than this linebacker that I'm about to say, but it brings me back to the TJ Edwards situation, and they really wanted TJ Edwards back, and he ultimately went to Chicago, didn't get this huge contract, but Nakobe Dean, I think, is far better than TJ Edwards. He can do a lot more than TJ Edwards can. TJ Edwards obviously was a tackling machine. He was an absolute monster in that category and could throw up 130, 140 tackles in a season. But what I agree with you, like you spoke about it on the preview episode, and I was like, I can see it, but I can see him being a guy that they let walk, especially because the draft investment that they put in Jihad Campbell. But he just does so many things. Him and Zach Bond together just do so well. That has to be one of the best linebacker duos in the league. The way that they play off of each other and their capabilities together on the field is so impressive. And like you said, no linebacker is ever going to have a 0% missed tackle rate. That's just impossible. So like, you know, the run defense has improved significantly. He's making some big plays that it would be so hard to go up against, you know, Bond and Dean and Cooper DeJean and even, you know, we don't love Reed Blankenship on this show, but Reed Blankenship had a pretty good game yesterday. He's obviously going to have his games here and there. But, I mean, I thought, like, the defense looked elite. Like, they looked all together. They looked like, you know, Jalen Phillips was such an edge was such a necessary piece to put into the fold to take some pressure off of other guys who may have been feeling that they needed to do more to compensate. Like Jalix Hunt, obviously Jalix Hunt is good. We love Jalix Hunt, but I won't speak for you, but I still think that there's room to develop and continue to improve. And he was just being thrust into this starting role. It felt like there was a lack of veteran leadership. And now that veteran leadership and that presence is back in Brandon Graham and Jalen Phillips and the energy that he brought to that game. This defense looked even better, and it already looked so stellar leading up to this, with just, you know, the main question mark being, can we address the edge position? Even with Nolan Smith coming back, it wasn't, you know, a guarantee that he was going to be the difference maker. But now you kind of see Smith had a good game. Phillips had a good game. Dean had a really good game. Moro Jomo, he called out what they were running. Like they even
on the fourth down,
you know,
play.
Josh Jacobs even talked about it on the after the game on the fourth down play. They knew what we were doing, and I had to pivot to the other side, and the blocking wasn't meant to match. So like, obviously his mindset was, I got to go the other way, but the blocking wasn't going to match. So he just had to hope something opened up. But Arjomo was screaming it out. They knew that they had that play caught prior to. And like, it's crazy to think that you can move on from a guy like Milton Williams and have a guy behind him that I would argue Arjomo's better than Williams' year last year, when Williams ended up garnering that massive contract that he got.
I was going to say, like, he was projected to fill that Milton Williams spot, and it started a little slow early. And look, is this defense going to be as good as last year's number one defense? Probably not. But I think for the rest of the year, this Eagles defense has a chance to, I mean, they're going to be going up against some good offenses, obviously. You're going up against Detroit, Dallas, Chicago, the Chargers, the Bills, you know, and Washington. Like, you're going to be going up against some really, really good offenses. So are you going to give up points? You're going to give up yards? Yes. But if they can truly be like a bend but don't break defense and not give up many points, like, again, the Eagles offense is good enough that they if the defense is going to give up 14, they can score 17. If the defense is going to give up 21, they can score 24. And as I mentioned before, Jalen always says, you know, the offense is going to look different every week, and we will, you know, again, I mentioned that the consistency word on the offensive side of the ball. We want them to be more consistent, but it doesn't matter to me, because they can win 3-0. They can win 31-30. It doesn't, as long as they get the W. You were talking about how the Eagles want to find a way to keep Jihad on the field, obviously, because of the investment. You know how they can do that? Go to a 4-3, play all three linebackers. Imagine playing Bond, Dean, and Jihad Campbell at linebacker all together. That, like, and then you put Jalen Phillips, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, and Jalen Carter in front. Like, oh my God! Obviously, they play a 3-4. That's what Fangio likes to run. But I don't know how much more you can play Campbell at edge, he's this year, at least this year, he's not built for that. I don't think. He has trouble setting the edge on the run game, but you obviously want him on the field. He's that talented, and obviously, like, he started the first 4 or 5 games, and played a lot, and now he's not playing as much because of Nakobe Dean and just what he brings to this defense. So, but if you want to try to find a way to get all of them on the field at the same time, like, change it up. You don't have to be a strict 3-4 defense. You can be a multiple defense, 4-3, 3-4, 4-2-5, whatever the Eagles want to do. If they have enough defensive backs, which we're still iffy about. But yeah, like, just the way that the defense performed, and we talk about the front line again. 3 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, hit the quarterback 8 times. This was probably their best game as a defensive front, the front 4. And I mentioned Jalen Carter, his best game, 2 tip passes. The moves that he was putting on the defensive lineman or the offensive lineman for Green Bay, in big time situations. You mentioned Maro Ojomo calling out the play on the 4th and 1 towards the end of the game, which we thought was going to be the end of the game, but obviously was close to not being the end of the game. But yeah, like, it was outstanding, and it's good to see that we know that they have it in them going forward against offenses that are going to be better than Green Bay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a really impressive game defensively. I mean, I guess if you're looking to nitpick, I mean, Cooper DeJean probably had one of his worst games of the year. He definitely had a less than stellar game. But the good thing is, everyone else, or a large majority of other defensive players, were able to pick up for any lack in somebody else's game, and that's the good thing. This defense is so deep. This defense is so strong that in the case that somebody struggles, you hope that the rest can pick up and support where needed, and you definitely could see that was definitely happening in some instances. And then it was a little weird, the Jair Alexander news, and the fact that he wasn't flying with the team. And I don't want to read too much into it, but I'm a little skeptical about what they're going to do with Alexander going forward. But obviously, I'm not going to put much stock into, Adoree Jackson played like 63 snaps. He had a pretty solid game, but it was a pretty solid game against an inconsistent offense with no real true wide receiver 1. So obviously, when you're looking at him as a CB2 against a wide receiver 2, he's really facing what would be some teams, 3rd or 4th wide receiver on the depth chart. So, I mean, the good thing is he didn't get absolutely lit up throughout this game. But I'll be interested to see moving forward. I really think the guy that's going to get the chance, and he needs to be activated by Wednesday, is Ja'Cory Bennett. I don't know why he wasn't activated, why he didn't. Maybe it was the cold, and they were like, we're not going to risk it in this cold climate game. We'll bring you back in a game that, that makes more sense. But I mean, they only have till Wednesday, which is a weird day to have to activate somebody. So the decision has to be made, and I hope that there's not something more, there with Ja'Cory Bennett that's being hidden, because I think that Bennett deserves a chance, and he's under contract the next year. Adoree Jackson definitely shouldn't be back with the team next season. So it would be nice to see, do we have an answer, or somewhat of an answer at CB2 in-house? Alexander probably won't be back next year. So do we have some sort of help in-house for next season? I know it's looking ahead a year, but obviously you want to take advantage of the opportunities that you have with some of these guys. So, I mean, it was a little weird. I mean, I don't like to see the Adoree Jackson, Keely Ringo show more than I need to. So hopefully Ja'Cory Bennett gets activated. There's nothing lingering that's that's keeping him from coming back. And then whatever they decide to do with Jair Alexander, we'll see. Maybe he wasn't really brought in to be any type of answer at the CB2 position. Maybe he was brought in to be, more veteran presence, more of a guy to help a young DB room. Tough to tell, but obviously he wanted out of Baltimore because he wanted an opportunity, and I felt that he was going to get given somewhat of an opportunity here in Philadelphia. So it'll be interesting to see going forward after this game what they do at CB2. But a lot of positive things came out of this, especially on the defensive side of the ball. And just like you said, we have a defense that can bend and in a lot of cases won't break. So there's hopefully those moments where you have these ugly wins like this, and a win's a win, and you take them and you ride that defense for the strength that they are for you. But I mean, the hope clearly is that this offense figures it out, because once you reach the playoffs, you don't have a lot of 10-7 games in the playoffs. There's a as strong as defenses can be, it ultimately ends up coming down to what offense can put more points up on the board, and you just don't see a lot of low scoring games in the playoffs. So hopefully this offense is able to figure it out.
Defense wins championships. Now, will it be 10-7? No, but 21-17 is still would be considered low scoring. So,
but when you need a stop, that's where the defense wins championships comes in. In a league that favors the offense and wants points up on the board, this defense is one of the defenses that would be at the top of this in this league of who you would want out there to get those 1 or 2 stops that you need to keep it that 1-score game and to get that win.
I am going back to the cornerback talk. I am disappointed that Jair didn't play, because I thought he could have I mentioned it on Friday. I thought he was going to start before the news came out that he wasn't traveling. I think Bennett not being activated last week was probably more to do with a roster thing, just because when he gets activated, they're going to have to cut somebody. And I don't know if they know who they want to cut yet. Probably going to be... could be Matt Pryor. It could be one of the offensive linemen. I don't think they would cut a Dory Jackson. He didn't look that bad, obviously, against Green Bay. But like you mentioned, Christian Watson was their top receiver. There was no Matthew Golden. There was no Tucker Kraft. Like, they didn't have it. And Romeo Doubs ended up getting hurt. They had to put Mo Belton out there, who's a cornerback. So that, like, this week, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams. Like, this is going to be a much better offense. Dallas next week, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens, and then Rome Odunze and DJ Moore. Like, it's going to be better. You would think better offenses, but again, I trust the Eagles defense. And it also helps when you have a true legit number 1 corner, because Quinyon Mitchell is the truth. He is playing like this is only his second year, but like, the way he plays out there and the way he maneuvers and kind of shields if he's maybe getting a little touchy, grabby with somebody, like he is so good at that as the top corner. And like, I'm looking forward to seeing him up against, St. Brown and Williams, Jamison Williams, whoever he's going to cover against Detroit. Like, I want to see him get tested and see how he responds, but he is really good. And it, like, we were looking for that shutdown number 1 corner for a long time. We traded for Slay, and as he started getting older, we were looking for somebody that could play opposite him and take over the reins, and they got that guy in Quinyon Mitchell. And I remember when we drafted him, I was like, maybe get Terry and Arnold, maybe get Kool-Aid McKinstry. Howie Roseman is smart, and Howie Roseman knew what he was looking for, and Quinyon Mitchell was the guy. And man, he is so good at what he does out there on the field.
Yeah, and turn on the film go back in time to any of the truly elite shutdown cornerbacks of our time. There's hand fighting, there's grabbing, there's jockeying for position. It happens. I know there's so many people, so many other
rules were also different back then.
Much different. That I agree. But there's a lot of people who turn on the film and they're like, look at what Quinyon Mitchell's getting away with. But like, look at like a Sauce Gardner, look at Pat Surtain, look at any of those elite cornerbacks now. They're going to do the same thing. And are they going to get away with things sometimes? Absolutely. But everyone gets away with some things in this league, and everyone gets opportunities to capitalize on penalties and getting away with things. So, I agree with you. Like, the search, like, Slay was a good stopgap. He had some great seasons. He had some ups and downs. But so far, Quinion Mitchell has been so good, so consistent. And then to land Cooper DeJean, I know that we obviously Cooper DeJean didn't have the best of games this past week, but Cooper DeJean's is such a stalwart in the middle of that defense now. And like you can't even really debate moving him to the outside because he's so important to the interior of this defense and what he can do in the slot. So I mean, it is great that in the same draft class, Howie was able to address the future of this DB room. I mean, someday we're going to have to cross the bridge of how do you afford to keep both of them on contract with the Eagles. But I mean, you cross that bridge when you get there. For now, we have a couple more seasons where we get to enjoy some truly elite, dominant defensive back play from those two guys in Philadelphia. And there's not many duos out there that are as good.
No, and Howie did give them flexibility with the Michael Carter trade because he can play slot. He can also play safety. Now, he didn't get out on the field on the defense this past week, but who knows going forward if he would. Now, like Makuba, again, he wasn't a disaster. He didn't give up a big play, but again, the passing game for Green Bay was off. So, we'll see what happens when you're going up against better defenses, but or better offenses, excuse me. But all around, the Eagles' defense looked really, really good out there. So,
yeah. And then I guess the next call out I would want to make is for Xavier Gipson. Like, why it continued to take so long to get him out. I didn't think he'd ever return punts because he's had a muff punt issue in the past. So far, obviously, we haven't seen it. It's the early going, but like he's truly changed up the kick return game and the punt return game for the Eagles. And obviously
he's smart. He knows the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you remember the punt that looked like Green Bay kept out of the end zone, but they didn't. As soon as the Green Bay player touches it, the Eagles or the receiving team can touch it, and even if they fumble it, get tackled in the end zone, whatever it is, the ball gets put back unless you're beyond that mark, gets put back where the defending or where the kicking team touches it. And there were a lot of people that were like, why, what are you doing? And Green Bay thought it was a safety, this and that. Like, he knows the rules. So you're right. Like, special teams has been a lot better since they figured out the kickoff return situation, since they figured out the punt return situation and not have to go to Cooper DeJean. Kickoffs isn't Dillon and Bigsby. They put Bigsby back at running back where he should have been in the first place and not returning kicks. So like, they look a lot more now. I remember, like, when we went back to go back to Sirianni's first year, we all wanted Michael Clay fired. Then they looked really good, and then it kind of was like they started off good. He's back to like being a top tier special teams coach. So just kind of figuring out all the pieces and who you have, and now that everything is starting to settle down as we're getting towards the back end of this season, they look a lot better now. They're still, like you mentioned on Friday, 31st in field position or whatever it is, but it was a lot worse. Like, they were starting inside the 20. Now they're at least getting up to, 30, 35, 40 yard line every once in a while.
Yeah, I mean, you can see how much value teams are starting to put into kick returners because now kick returns are back. It's part of the game, and it's so good to have it back. But now you have to find one guy who's obviously likely not going to be a key starter on your team who has to take on that role. And before this, obviously, you mentioned the kick return issues and the revolving door that we had there. But at punt return, we had Jahan Dotson, and all Jahan Dotson did would be fair catch. And while he was making the fair catches, we weren't getting any yardage out of it. Now we have Xavier Gipson, who knows the game, knows the rules, can actually run with significant speed and make something happen on punt returns and kick returns, and that's special, and that's important. I don't know why it took so long to get him into the. I think it was 2 weeks where he was scratched. A healthy scratch and didn't get the opportunity to play. Obviously, the Eagles are probably kicking themselves in the butt for not doing it sooner. But I mean, it's finally, you had all these different moves made, and Bigsby was brought in with kind of that intention in mind, and finally you have an answer at the kick return position, hopefully for the future, and hopefully his hands are stronger and he's got that punt return figured out, and we're not going to see any fumbles or muff punts, or limited ones at least. But and Michael Clay has done wonders, and special teams has been so important in a number of games for the Philadelphia Eagles this year, and you see it more and more. Special teams has become so much more important around in the league. They play and have a significant impact on the result almost every week. At least one or two games have the result, changed on some sort of special teams play.
So go to the comment section. Doughboy says the Philadelphia Eagles offense needs to address its inconsistency by implementing more creative and varied play calling, improved offensive line execution, and using Jalen Hurts more. Yeah, they definitely so on the play that he fumbled the ball, that was a great play call. The QB draw, he hit the first down. You got to give Edgerrin Cooper a lot of credit with the peanut touch or punch to cause the fumble. But I did like that. They are very selective with his running right now, and I think that. But I do think as we hit the back stretch of the end of the season, they'll use them more. Especially, they have the opportunity to get the number one seed and have the playoffs run through the link. You got to use every advantage possible, and he's a big advantage at the quarterback position. And it's a shame that Sirianni's not that good at calling plays, because I still do not trust Kevin Patullo. He did not have I don't think he had a good game yesterday at all. Very conservative, very predictable, giving up on a lot of plays. Like, again, on the third and longs, just do the draw and kick it. But they didn't give the receivers a chance most of the time. Look at Detroit. They were scuffling and struggling for a couple of weeks. Dan Campbell took over play calling. They threw up 40 points on. Now, it was Washington. Washington's not that good this year. But they got creative with some creative play calls. The Eagles haven't really done much, haven't had much creativity this year. So hopefully, I don't want to say they're saving it, which would be stupid if they are, but hopefully we do start seeing that, a little bit more in the year, a little bit more going forward this year. Yes. And we have mentioned how the offense is conservative, and it does have to change. In regards to AJ Brown, the Eagles offense has to put AJ Brown in the slot and move him around to get him involved with the offense. And then first, let me talk about that point. Yes. I do think, though, that, again, a lot of it could have to do with him not being 100%. They did, move him around a little bit, but again, it could come down to the routes that he's running, and they can be terrible routes. If you remember the Minnesota game, on that fourth down play call, the original route sucked, and then AJ and Jalen kind of had to play backyard ball. Jalen put him go deep, touchdown. We have to look at the route combinations, the route trees, what routes he's running. Can't be the same routes over and over again. Can't be either a fly or a comeback or an out. Need to run a variety. He can do that. He's such a strong, powerful receiver. That's why I would love to see more slants to him. Get him in the open field, and he can break a tackle and take it. The second part of this, the Sirianni call on 4th and 6 was a bad call. Punt the ball. So I've seen things where apparently Sirianni, after the play, after the Eagles snapped it, threw the ball deep, it was incomplete, he was looking like, why did he throw the ball? I'm wondering, because if that play, if it was even supposed to go that way, were they just supposed to take the delay of game so they can punt it? Because there are reports that AJ and Jalen kind of went rogue and decided to, because that's one of the big plays they did it multiple times last year. They did it against the Giants and the Browns last year. They did it against the Vikings earlier this year. That is one of their go-to plays. Do you think they went rogue? What are your thoughts on that, Connor? Because it was very frustrating with the way that play. I was so mad that they actually snapped the ball.
Before we do that, breaking news. Jair Alexander has informed the Eagles he is stepping away from the team to focus on getting right physically and mentally. So I guess that kind of helps, understand why he didn't travel. It sucks that, the trade and the, you had to make the trade and whatnot. But of course, we think about the Marshawn Nealon situation in the Dallas Cowboys, and what just went down with him. And you have to be right mentally, and you want to be there for your teammates, but you also have to be there for yourself. You don't want more situations to come up like we've seen with guys like Nealon and some other players in this league. So no matter what, the investment in Alexander, none of that really matters. It's just he's struggled a lot since that off-season knee surgery, and it appears to be affecting him beyond just physically, but also from a mental standpoint. And he needs to get right, and it makes a lot more sense. Apparently, Jay Glazer noted he's contemplating retirement. Wouldn't be surprised. If he does retire and make that decision. That would be the second veteran brought in this year that came to the Eagles and had a change of heart. Obviously, Zadarius Smith, probably very much different than what Jair Alexander is going through and why he's coming to that decision. I don't know, LJ, if you want to add a little bit more before we go back to talking about the decision making by Sirianni.
I mean, I know injuries are. That definitely can take a mental toll on you, and like he was one of the better cornerbacks before he had that injury in Green Bay, and it's a shame. Again, I'm a big fan. I wanted the Eagles to sign him when he got released in June, and I was excited when he got the trade here last week, and I just hope that he does get himself right. Obviously the well-being of the athlete, the well-being of the person is what is more important than what he can do on the field. Maybe if he does get it, maybe in a month, maybe he takes the month, he gets his head clear, he starts feeling healthy, he comes back. Like he's still on the Eagles roster, or like he's still under Eagles control. So who knows? But I do hope that he takes care of himself. And it really does suck. Like because he was a good player. He's only 28 too. Like we see these athletes retiring so early, or potentially retiring so early. But I'm hoping that it wasn't because the Eagles didn't have him travel. Maybe this is why he did, like you mentioned, this is why he didn't travel to Green Bay. Like he had this discussion with the team. It's more important than, the Eagles trading a draft pick away for nothing. Granted, they did get a draft pick in return, so whatever. But still, yeah. I hope the best for him, because again, I'm a huge fan of Jair Alexander.
Now back to the play at hand. I mean, tough to say if they did go rogue. Like I said, that was one of the plays where I kind of mentioned at the beginning of the show where Jalen Hurts looked off. He didn't look like he was himself fully, and maybe that was, like you said, maybe that was weather related. Maybe he was coming off the bye and just having to get his wheels turning again. But he, like 9 times out of 10, they hit that play. They make that play, throwing outside the numbers, putting the ball where only Devontae Smith or AJ Brown is able to catch that ball and to make that play. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. I mean, even if they went rogue, if Nick Sirianni calls the play, like a punt, like it probably should have been, you don't have to worry about pulling them offside or trying to get yourself in a situation where you can use a tush push, get that first down, and really end the game. You don't. If they went rogue, Nick Sirianni is equally responsible for putting them in the position to be able to go rogue, when he should have probably just put the punter out there, the punt team out there, and punted that ball away and buried him. It was way too close for comfort, and we're lucky that the Green Bay Packers offense was just as off as the Philadelphia Eagles offense was, and wasn't able to get their kicker in any better spot than, that 64-yard field goal, which he absolutely shanked. It wasn't even going to be good from 40. But obviously, you don't put yourself in that situation to have things go rogue.
You don't, but I will say this: if they hit it, everybody's celebrating. So, like,
of course,
it's a two-way street. They should have just put the punt team out there, even if it's a touchback, instead of having the ball at the 35, 36 yard line. They'd had the ball at the 20. If man is able to execute a punt that gets them inside the 10, like that's there's 25, 27 seconds left, whatever, and they have to go 60 yards instead of 30 yards. So yeah, I mean, and it's crazy too, because like the practice kick, which shouldn't have been allowed, while it was short, it was online. Yeah, that other one was the second one. And when the Eagles called the timeout and then Green Bay brought the offense out, I knew what they were going to do. And like I saw the Eagles DBs playing back. I'm like, what are you doing? They're just trying to get a couple yards closer. I'm glad that they weren't able to complete that pass. It'd have been funny if the Eagles were able to pick it and take it to the house. That would have been enjoyable. But yeah, it was such a terrible kick. The Eagles got fortunate there. They got really fortunate.
We talk about this game so differently. If, maybe they're able to make that turn into a touchdown, or maybe they make it into a makeable field goal, and then it's a tie game, and then who knows? We might be talking about a loss today. Like, that's how different, like, this outcome could be just based solely off of that. And the difference, like you said, at a minimum would have been 15 yards difference, and you put your offense in a position to go rogue, take that shot. I mean, to me, it was just a clear punt. Try and get that coffin corner punt. Worst case, like you said, they come out to the 20, and that's 15 more yards that they have to get in a game where offensive yardage was an absolute premium.
Yeah. So before we finish off, I will say that the Eagles' offensive line played a lot better. They didn't give up any sacks. Parsons and Gary, like, it's a really good defensive front over there in Green Bay. Parsons did get after Jalen a couple of times, but Jalen was able to use his, ability to run and get away. And I think he hit Devontae on a pass when he was being chased, which was pretty good. Mailata definitely needs to play better. He did not have a good game, I don't think. And like there was a one play where he was trying to pull and he stumbled in front of Saquon on a run play, and he pretty much tackled Saquon in one of his lost runs. The Warrior Award goes to Lane Johnson. I don't know how the hell he came back into that game. I thought he was done for a couple of weeks. And the last drive when the Eagles wanted, or he wanted to come out there and be out there with the guys, he came out, and I was shocked that he came back onto the field. Lane Johnson, man, he deserves all the kudos. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day, and he's such a we know what this offense looks like when he's not on the field, and when he doesn't start games or doesn't play in a game, we know what the record is. But I can't believe he came back. It looked like he did something to his knee, and they called it an ankle. I was shocked. But when he came back into the game, I was even more shocked. When he came out at halftime and he had this helmet on, he was stretching. He was trying to get back into the game, and they finally let him. But kudos to Lane Johnson. It was awesome to see him back out on the field.
Agreed. The offensive line looked better, but I agree. Jordan Mailata, it looks like just a shell of himself from prior seasons. I don't know what's going on. He took a couple bad penalties as well, and then like the Saquon Barkley play. And while obviously he didn't technically, give up a ton of pressures, it is some of the play from Jordan Mailata has been costly for this offense. And hopefully he gets it together. But I agree. I think Lane Johnson earns the Warrior Award almost every year. He troops it out. He's one of those guys that, if it's a question mark, can he play? Should he play? He's always up there saying, I want to be out there with my guys. I'm going out there. I know that this team is better with me out there than me not out there. And my guys need me. And it's so much respect to him in how he handles himself, especially in situations where he's banged up or injured. I mean, we have a good swing tackle. Fred Johnson can handle his own, but obviously you don't want to go and have Fred Johnson. Yep, you don't want to have Fred Johnson out there if you don't need him, but he puts up an admirable effort whenever he's out there. Letting him go was a crazy decision in the offseason as it was. So lucky we got him back for a discount from the Jags, who I don't even know why they would give up a swing tackle for that cheap either. But I mean, that's our reward. Reward.
When the Eagles go to that 6-man front, when they go to the 6 offensive linemen and him being the 6th one, they found something there. We'll see if they can open up plays off of that. And I'm not saying throw the ball to Fred Johnson or Lane Johnson or whoever it is, but let's see if they can get the passing game going.
And one last point. I'm still frustrated that Howie didn't address tight end 2 at the trade deadline, because that Grant Calcaterra cannot, whoever we have after Dallas Goedert cannot block. They're absolutely useless in that category. And I get you want a receiving tight end, but then you have to carry 3 tight ends on roster and one of them be a blocking specialist, because it's just so frustrating to watch Calcaterra go out there and try to block, and nothing has changed from last year and how he looked last year. In fact, obviously, because the offensive line has struggled at times this season or not looked as good as they usually do, Grant Calcaterra looks even worse when he's out there having to block, because he has to step up more for them. So, I mean, I wish we addressed it. Just
Fred Johnson is your blocking tight end.
Essentially, like, I would like to see Cam Latu out there more, because I mean, he had that pump block earlier in the season in the game there, and like he's a blocker. He can block. What's wrong with having him out there in situations where you're likely gonna block? He probably has just as good of a chance of catching a ball as Calcaterra, or being targeted as like Grant Calcaterra. So I don't see why they haven't given him more of an opportunity.
Jalen does have a relationship with Calcaterra. They did go to Oklahoma together, so he's more than likely to throw it to him. But we will be back later this week to get you set for the game everybody wanted to see last year. The Detroit Lions coming to Philadelphia to face the Philadelphia Eagles. Detroit is in first in their division. The Eagles are first in the NFC. It's the Eagles, the Seahawks, and then the Lions. And then who's in the lead in the other division that I can't think? Oh, Tampa. And then Tampa. And again, the Eagles are checking off boxes. They've beaten the Rams. They've beaten Tampa. They beat Green Bay. They get the Lions this week, another battle of top NFC teams and a top-heavy NFC. Thank you all for tuning into the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJ54. And follow the Eagles Pinpull Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get podcasts at Eagles Pinpull Network. We'll see you later this week to get you ready for the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.